Hello, everybody. Okay. Natasha, what'd you do today? Did you like go outside or anything?
I had a weird day. I had an allergy testing, like a skin prick test this morning.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it was a bit odd. So yeah, it was mostly on the road because I had to go far away, but I got to spend last night with a really good friend of mine in Sacramento where there's no snow on the ground, which was really different. And yeah, had a really, really wonderful evening.
That's kind of nice. I
Yeah.
went down to Tucson like last week, and it was nice to just be in the warmth without snow.
Yeah, it was different. I forgot a jacket and it was okay.
Yeah. Like this is great. I like this.
Evan, one thing I realized that we probably should have mentioned in the RSVP is if people grab a notebook or scratch paper or something to write on, that'll be helpful because there's a lot of like reflection sort of things.
Cool. So for anyone here, if you have a notepad or any scratch paper, I mean, I guess would taking notes on your phone work?
Totally. Yeah.
Sweet, that works
I mean,
too.
so it's for some of it, you can just kind of like think about it. But for me, it's always helpful to like scratch out all the thoughts, because you don't
Yeah.
remember everything. Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure that no one was trying to get into Backcountry Beta or the clubhouse just now. Yeah. Oh, cool. So anyone who is here right now, if you want to go ahead and put your first and last name in the chat, that way you can be entered into winning a Coalition Snow gift card and then either a pair of either TREW bibs or a jacket. So put your first and last name in the chat because you get, oh, I just lost the chat. Every time you're at a live one, that yeah, ups your chance. Cool, there's a few more people now entering, but yay, yeah. So first and last name in the chat, but we're gonna start getting into it and then I'll let anyone else in who's in the waiting room. But my name's Evan. I use she, her pronouns. I am the headmistress of the Coalition Clubhouse. And we've been doing Backcountry Beta for a few years now in collaboration with TREW Gear. And it's been a really great opportunity to bring free tips, tricks, all sorts of stuff to people. And this year with that giveaway, that's something new. And then also if you chose when you registered for Backcountry Beta, there's a couple options. You can join for free or you can join a few different price points, and all of that goes towards the Indigenous Backcountry Scholarship. But it is a free event, so there is no pressure there. And so I'm really excited for this. And Natasha is one of our Coalition Snow ambassadors. And if there's a question you have that's like super pressing to something that Natasha is talking about, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. But for the way that this workshop is working, we think it'd be better to leave questions till the end. So I'm going to hand it over to Natasha.
Thank you, Evan. And hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. And anyone who's watching this later, glad you hopped on and got a look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if you're not seeing things. And I'll tell you a little bit about what this workshop is like. So give me a second to get this all dialed in. You can see all kinds of cool stuff in my background right now, I'm sure. Super fun. All right. Looks like a slide there now.
Yes, it does.
Sweet. All right. And I am always loving looking at everyone's faces here. So I'll make sure I see you there. All right, so this workshop, I like to do workshops that are a little bit more participation, discussion, activities. We might do some breakout rooms depending on how big the room gets. But a lot of this specifically, since we're talking about communication, a lot of it is going to be reflection. So we're really trying to take a minute and think back to the experiences we've had, how we react to things in a very non-judgmental way, right? Because we're just trying to observe and maybe make different choices in the future to have a better experience, because it's all about communicating for comfort. We want traveling in the backcountry to be a comfortable, good, positive experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. Get these going. So this course kind of all started from this certification course that I'm a certified instructor on, which is called Mental Health First Aid. And after taking my Area 1 course, getting into backcountry touring, and only touring with males, I've never actually toured with a non-male, which is outrageous, but I've learned a lot from that. It's really created some pretty gaping holes in the difference in communication. So between those experiences and this course that I teach, I've really realized the power of the skills that we teach around supporting one another's mental health and how we can utilize those in general communication in the backcountry. And the secret is you'll come to find that basically everything we talk about today can be utilized in all different areas of our life, because communication can really go across the board. So a little bit about my background. I do have a BA in sociology and a BS in mathematical sciences. That's what I studied. I've had careers at Google Inc., at Vail Resorts, but now I'm self-employed. I'm a writer. I'm a facilitator, instructor. I still have backgrounds as a business analyst. I've done talent development courses. I focused on employee culture. So I really try to bring all of those together into what I share with people in workshops that I do. So here's what I'm bringing together in this course specifically. My time working at ski resort, I worked and lived up at Kirkwood Mountain Resort for 4 years, and I still work there part-time because free ski passes, right? I was actually a mental health first aider starting in 2016. So I've been helping others with their mental health as a friend and a colleague for 7 years now. But now I help teach those skills to other people. I've taught leadership courses that span every different leadership topic you can think of, taken my Area 1 course. And I also did some mindful meditation, some active listening courses. So trying to bring that all together for you all. And you might have saw in the description, I also bring some wise words from the women in my life, or not in my life, that we've come across. So let's get into what we're talking about here today. I also like to share my core values because I think that gets an idea of what I like to focus on. So here is a quote that I learned in the Area 1 course. Having a woman in your group reduces your chance of getting caught in an avalanche by 40%. 40%. And when I heard that, and every time I go on a tour, since I've been the only woman every time, I just want to say, you're welcome. And thinking about why this is could be a whole other workshop, right? We're not focusing in on why this is, but I want to utilize this to empower us to speak up and to communicate and to really take advantage of the fact that us being out there can really be a benefit to our group. And although this quote doesn't specifically have non-binary or other underrepresented genders, I sure as hell could bet that that would be completely true. So keep this in mind as we're going through it. We really shouldn't need a statistic to convince us, but you should speak up. So the first thing we're going to talk about is starting with why. Has anybody read the book or heard of the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek? I read it years and years ago, and I've really continued to stand by that model of thinking about why I'm choosing to do anything. And when I first took my ARI course, one of the first things that I did, even before I took it, and I was talking to the different people in my social group, that I knew had already taken the course and I expected that I would be touring with, I was really expressing to them why I decided to take Area 1, why I'm interested in the backcountry, so that they know what I'm in it for and what I'm not in it for, and we can get on the same page. And I believe really strongly in this because I feel like this, and we're starting with this because I feel like the core of where communication can break down is when we are going after different goals and we're not aware of that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. If you think about the definition of team, it's a group that is going after the same goal. And when you're touring, the group that you're with should be a team. And if one person is going after one goal of what they expect for the day and the other person's after another one, likely you're going to have communication breakdowns. So that's why we're starting here. And I think it's just super fun to think about. So let's do a little journaling, self-reflecting. This is going to be our first activity. I want you to take a second, think about why you want to explore the backcountry in the winter. And if you've never done it before and you're at this workshop because you're interested, think about why you're interested. Why'd you sign up for this course? Why have you thought about taking Area 1? Why have you invested all this money in backcountry gear? What are the goals while you're out there? These are all kind of just prompting questions. You don't need to answer every one, but think about what comes to mind. What brings you joy when you're out doing a ski or snowboard tour? Why do you put forth all this effort? It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of money investment. It's a lot of time investment. It's a lot of safety precautions. It's exhausting. Why do you put in all that effort? What are you in it for? So take a couple minutes and think about it. Like Evan said, put it in your phone, write it on your scratch paper, however that is. If there's somebody in the house that's hanging out, you can talk to them about it. And just let you guys, we'll probably do about a minute on this and then we'll talk about it. And if anybody, when I introduce an activity, if anybody has questions and you have no idea what I'm asking you or inviting you to do, definitely unmute yourself. Those are definitely time for questions. So I'm going to throw out a couple of other kind of helpful thoughts that might get you to a place. So are you out there for fresh tracks, for the challenge, the risk, being remote, because you don't want to pay for a ski pass, because you like hiking, for the workout, maybe the connection and conversation with others? They're all kind of things that I've heard in the past. I'll give you about 30 more seconds to think about it, and then we're gonna chat about it. All right, so since the group is a little bit on the smaller side, and I see some people not sharing video, so I don't know if they'll be able to participate verbally, we're gonna do the, we usually do like a debrief after. We're gonna do that just as the entire group. So let me get this next slide up. So rather than doing breakout groups, let's just chat as the whole group because I'd really love to hear from everyone. If you'd like to introduce yourself, always a great way to start. And then I want to hear what you came up with. And if you struggled to come up with one reason, or you're not sure, like this is the first time you've contemplated that, share that, but really like what came up in that activity for you. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I can start us.
Thanks, Evan.
That's interesting because I feel like I've never fully thought about it. Of course, there's like, oh, fresh powder, and like seeing either like in a ski film or something, people skiing like big lines. But the reality is I'm never like, when I'm doing any sort of touring, doing that, because I'm terrified of avalanches, even though I have training. It's just like, yeah, I think that's for the resort, so I think it's more like being with friends and being outside, like human propelled travel. But yeah, I have a pretty low risk tolerance when it comes to backcountry, so it's almost a little contradicting sometimes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Evan. And so 2 follow-up questions just to kind of try to dig deeper into this. So you said being with friends. Do you spend time with different friends, or does it feel different when you're in the backcountry versus like when you meet them at the resort?
Yeah, I mean, there's really only like, I had one friend who I used to go a lot with, and since moving, I've struggled like making friends, or like the environment that I'm around here is very not exclusive necessarily, but like a little bit. And so I just don't really feel comfortable going with other people, or don't feel like I feel like I have to prove myself almost. So I've mostly just been going to the resort because it's almost a little more like, it's less stressful. I'm like, okay, I can just go up a lift and go down.
Yeah, and you're really getting to, why I want to share these thoughts and tools is because the best thing is to be kind of choosy about who you go in the backcountry with. Because if you are more risk averse and you're out there to connect with people, and somebody else in your community wants to, get the steepest, most untracked stuff, that's going to make you really uncomfortable, and it might make them really uncomfortable. So it really does get to the point of sometimes it can't. I mean, like I said, I've only toured with men, and that's probably because I feel more comfortable with those people, but I haven't had the people in my community that are women that I've connected with and had these conversations. So having them right now is kind of our practice on potentially connecting with new people that we can go out with, or taking the group that we're already with and just making sure that we're a little bit more aligned. So I think you're definitely opening up some exciting thoughts to share. Does anybody else want to share what came up in that activity? Hillary, I think you unmuted yourself and then you disappeared.
I tried. I'm on my phone, which I never use because my laptop was dead. I don't know what the hell's going on, but okay.
We can see you though.
Okay, good. You can hear me.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, just like the shared experience and bonding with other people, and just being out in nature is so healing. And that's really what is a big thing for me. But I'm just like doing something for myself. Like just getting out of the norm. I haven't been able to go backcountry in like 15 years because I moved away and I moved. So anyways, just the last couple of years, I just moved back to Bend, Oregon. And so the last couple of years I've hooked up with my people, but nobody that I used to do backcountry with is here anymore. So I'm looking for new people, and there's like a lot of hesitancy on my part because I'm older now and not as, technical as I used to be, but I'm getting there and I'm working on it. So it's kind of a goal for me, but yeah, it is intimidating to find a new group of people because, you want to be safe. I'm very risk averse too. I'm a mom and I want to enjoy doing what I'm doing and challenge myself, but yeah,
and it sounds like you want to find the right match for where you're at. I mean,
right.
You'll see in a lot of these photos, you're not going to see me on, some steep, intense line that had to get up at dawn to go to. Like, you're going to see a lot of silly photos, and some of them I'm just taking my touring gear through a meadow, And so in reality, when we think about where we're at in our touring journey, whether we've never done it before, if it's been 15 years, and also like what we're interested in, finding, like being aware of what we're looking for, and being comfortable and confident in sharing that. Hopefully that will help you find those people. And I have an activity at the very end of this that I think might help find some of those people. So I appreciate you sharing that, Hilly, and I hope that today helps you get your new touring mates, because I think you're going to have a blast and find some cool people. And we're glad that you're coming back.
Me too. It was much needed.
All right. So for those that didn't feel like sharing in the group, here's another opportunity to share in the chat. So you might have written down 5 different ways or 5 different reasons why you like to tour in the backcountry. You might not have a clear idea in your head. I want you to just come up with one sentence. And if it changes in a week, that's totally fine. But one sentence that starts with, I ski or snowboard in the backcountry too, and fill in the blank. So again, we're just practicing. What is it? Why are we out there? So put that in the chat. You're just going to put it in the chat and share with everyone.
Natasha, for anyone who hasn't gone in the backcountry and are more like thinking about it, what's something for them?
Say, I'm interested in skiing or snowboarding in the backcountry, or I am interested in snowshoeing in the backcountry or hiking in the backcountry. You'll, again, here I'm on cross country skis in a meadow. You'll see ones on snowshoes. It doesn't need to be on the skis and the snowboard. So however you're interested in traveling on the snow outside the resort where there might be avalanche zones, why are you interested? And it could be different than when, maybe if you have been doing it, maybe Hillary 15 years ago, you had a different reason. So kind of think about like, what is it right now that's adding to your curiosity? And I think I'll join you and throw something in the chat. So let's see what we've got here. I love this. Oh, we've already got people connecting. Perfect. I snowboard in the backcountry to get experience on more varied terrain and to see more terrain. That's really good. That's a very good point. I ski in the backcountry to get away from the day-to-day and find a break or some time for myself. That's awesome. Yeah, sometimes that can be hard when you go to the resort because there's just a lot of people and it can be kind of stressful, and getting out in the woods feels a little different. I snowboard in the backcountry to connect with friends and have fun on the snow. And yeah, and so sometimes we feel like that when we're inbounds, and sometimes don't as much. Like maybe it's just not the same kind of connection, the same type of fun. I ride in the backcountry for a holistic experience and to have fun, to get away and have some solitude from the resort. That one resonates for me for sure. Most of the time, I'm interested in getting in the backcountry to hang out with my fellow shred instructors that have their own touring setups. It's a good point. If you work, this is something that I can relate to. If you work with people at a resort or guiding company or something like that, to just kind of pull away from that work environment and get somewhere else, it just kind of a different experience. To get outside and feel physically accomplished, push myself physically and my comfort zone mentally. So what are we seeing in common on these? Anybody noticing a common thread of why we got in the backcountry? So I'll point out what I don't see is I don't think anyone mentioned like fresh lines, deep powder, steep cliffs, hucking it 30-foot drops, you know. It's definitely for reasons that you don't see in the ski films, you know. You don't see as much on Instagram posts. So this is a big reason why we want to talk about it, because we don't talk about this part. That's not what people seem to focus on as to why we should be motivated and why we're out there. So we're going to revisit this at the very end of today. But I wanted to start here, and we're kind of thinking about this as we go through all these steps. But this, to me, if you're thinking of getting into backcountry, if you move somewhere new and you're looking for your crew, if you're maybe tired of the crew you've been riding with, start with this. I highly, highly recommend think about your why and share it. share it with your crew. So just like we did here, you get to do that in person, over email, on the phone, whatever it is, but we will revisit this to give you another way to share. So let's go into some more activities. So that's starting with our why, but let's talk about more about when we're actually out there. So first and foremost, like we were talking about a little bit at the beginning, when we are going on a tour or before, when we're preparing, we need to speak up and to listen, both. This quote by Melinda Gates, "A woman with a voice is, by definition, a strong woman." So this is another one that I want to think about. Again, we have women in here specifically, but we are a group of non-binary and underrepresented genders as well. So we just pop that in there. So just keep this in mind. Having a voice makes you strong. We're not talking about muscles. It's backcountry. Sometimes the muscle helps, but muscle will not get you up and down safely or comfortably and have fun alone. You need more than that. So here is a bit of a unique discussion, and I just want to see what comes out of this. So I want you to imagine you're at the trailhead. Maybe you're in the middle of your tour. Maybe you're just about to drop and start doing some lines. And everyone else in the group agrees on the route, the safety, the plan, whatever it is you're kind of in the middle of about to do or decide. But you disagree. Anyone been there? What do you do? Do you speak up? If no, why not? And if yes, how? So if anybody has any specific examples or just in general that comes up, I'd love to just discuss this. And if you don't, I have some examples too. You're in a group and everyone else disagrees with what you're thinking. What do you do?
I mean, I would probably end up, if it was like a big thing that I was like, okay, we're not, like the signs aren't good, I do not like this, and everyone else disagreed, I would probably just bail. Like, I'm sorry, but
what do you mean? What do you mean by bail? Like, where are you in this situation? Because sometimes bailing at the top of a run could be more dangerous, right? So are you talking about at the trailhead?
Yeah, I'm talking like more pre or on the way up where you still have time to do that. Like, hopefully making that decision. And honestly, I found that I can more make a decision in a bigger group if it's just me than when it's me and one other person. Cause sometimes we like, it's been someone who I'm very comfortable with. So we're always like, oh, we're on the same page. But then it'll end up that we both get to the top and her and I will both be like, I want to get the fuck down. Like, I want to get down. We're both like, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. But like, we just didn't communicate it as we were feeling it. Cause it was like,
interesting.
I think we're too far past the point of like, this isn't a safe spot to turn around, you know, or things like that. And so we didn't feel like we could both express that till it was over and we were like clear or at a safer spot.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts or experiences on when they would or would not speak up? I think it's really interesting to think about how you might respond differently when you're with one person versus a larger group. And I think now that you've said that, I've actually had similar experiences when I'm just with my partner. We've had horrible communication breakdowns, even when I try to communicate, but sometimes it doesn't come out right, which we'll talk about as well. And then when I'm in a bigger group with 4 different dudes, I be like, no, not into this, like over here. Or another thing to think about is sometimes in those larger groups, this is kind of a general communication thing, and you'll find this in work and friendships. If you just have one other ally who you two are on the same page, you feel a little bit more comfortable speaking up because you know you're not alone. Any other thoughts or experiences on this one? I think we have something in the chat. Go look at that. If it's weather related, I'd speak up, but less likely if it's trail choice and other logistics. I'd love to hear Airline sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, if you're able to unmute yourself or add to that, I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on why. Why are you okay speaking up if it's weather related and less so if it's other logistics? And if not, if anybody else has any experiences with this as well.
I almost feel like, yeah, like it would be easier for me to talk about weather specific things or snowpack or, you know, very tangible things. And because it's hard if you're just like, I'm not feeling it. Like, and you can't really say specifically why. Like, it's almost like you want to provide evidence and sometimes that feeling, right? And that's hard to communicate, particularly if you're in a group of men or you're with your partner, which I've definitely experienced that with my boyfriend. I'm like, and massive, right? Because it's like, I don't want to ruin everyone's time. But if you have evidence, then that's one thing. You speak, you know, very strongly, but yeah, it gets it's difficult.
Yeah. And this is why this is different. Like this is an AIRE course. We're talking about comfort.
Right.
Comfort. So that's the thing I see Airline has put in the chat. It's more an experience thing versus a gut thing. So when we look at the avalanche forecast, we can point very specific to that it's higher danger and we're on the aspect of that higher danger and we're above tree line and, you know, all those very specific quantitative things that we can write down and we can read. But when it comes to more, I think the gut thing, I mean, sometimes you're going up a track and you're like, I don't like this. Like you're saying, like, I just don't like this. This is not comfortable. I want to get out of here. You're getting grumpy. And sometimes even Evan said, if you don't know the solution, you might not feel like speaking up. But this is all what we're trying to think about is like, we do want to, if we're uncomfortable, if we're unsure, it shows you are strong by speaking up. We want to keep thinking of those. You can make a really huge impact by sharing like what's going on internally. What are you thinking? What do you think that even if you don't have the solution, maybe you bring it up, your partner's thinking the same thing, and you come up with a solution together, right? So I'm hoping that by reflecting on why we might not speak up, just by recognizing, we might be more likely to speak up in the future because we should trust our guts. I mean, how many times have you all felt that gut feeling and you either did or did not speak up and it turns out that gut feeling was right? I know I have. The worst tour that I did, I was like, this is not the route I wanted to do. This is the worst route. Try to communicate. It was the worst tour I ever did. And I hesitated. I tried, but I didn't stick to my guns. And I was definitely right. And it was agreed by myself and my partner that was not the right thing to do. So think about those times at the end when it has been right as we're going through this. So speaking up is part of it. Listening is another part of it, because we also need to empower the other people in our group, including our partners. And that could be a tough balance, right? Because we want to listen and we also want to empower ourselves to speak up and to trust our gut. That's communication, right? It's a two-way street. So active listening. Anybody have an idea of what active listening is? I'm sure you've heard it a lot before. Yeah, a little bit. So we're paraphrasing. This isn't an active listening course, so I'm just going to give you a quick idea. We're paraphrasing to show understanding, nonverbal cues, nodding, eye contact, leaning forward. See me using my hands a lot. Excuse me. Sometimes verbal affirmations like I see, I know, sure. You'll see me doing that as I'm listening to your responses. So active listening is, that's a key tool in communication when it comes to listening to somebody. You're not just sitting there and staring at the wall. You're trying to actually show somebody that you are listening. Also important in the backcountry, but it might be a little different. You're not just sitting across the table at dinner, right? So as we are preparing to go out in the backcountry and we want to make sure we're communicating, I want to think about how active listening might look and feel different in the backcountry. So what is the same and what's different? So just take a couple seconds to think about it. You could throw it in the chat, unmute yourself, maybe a time where you had to modify where you were on the trail or how you were communicating with somebody. And then I'm just going to take a look in the chat because we have something here. Does anybody have any thoughts on, if you're out in the backcountry, what would feel the same for active listening, or what would be really different? Whichever one is kind of coming up for you, in order to really show people in your group that you are listening to what they have to say.
I think sometimes, like particularly in a larger group, like if people don't, because a lot of times people don't know each other really well, or just, like learning people's names and using their name and saying, okay, David, what was that? What is your like trying to, because so many people talk over each other and just wait for someone to finish talking, right? So that they can interject. And I like that's something I had to use in my career as well, like a large group of people, like working for a common goal. And, half the time, I'm a ICU nurse. So it's like, you have all these people like dealing with an emergency. So it's like, there's a reason why people wear name tags, and it's not just for the patients. It's because I have no idea who the therapist is, but hey, so-and-so. And so that really has elevated the communication in those types of situations. Kind of related, but not really, but you know what I mean? Like just,
yeah, no, totally related. I mean,
difficult on the trail, like trying to make eye contact with somebody on the trail when you're all just like hiking along and want to die. But but
that's another great example. So using somebody's name, if somebody's two switchbacks ahead, I can holler up at Evan and say, Evan, hey, I need a break. Something like that, right? But eye contact, that might be a little tougher. And that's exactly why I'm thinking about this, right? Like think about what are the tools we can or cannot use in order to actually be able to listen to the people in our group. So if we're not able to establish eye contact in the certain situation that we're in, maybe it's, hey, Evan, can you stop? I want to get the group together. So then you can utilize eye contact and have that conversation. And you might be calling, and we're going to go through this to like, why am I calling out Evan's name? I might have noticed something and I want to bring the group together. What else? What about like nodding? You think you can see somebody nodding from far away if they're talking to you, or to just like confirm that you're actually listening to them? I've definitely been in the situation where I'm trying to talk to somebody and I'm like, they don't hear me at all. Because I mean, usually when you're going up, you don't have your helmet on, but sometimes there might be snow, there might be wind, it might be hard to hear. So again, trying to get in a situation when you are communicating or listening so that somebody can confirm that they hear. Because what if you're trying to communicate something, you think they heard you and they didn't?
I think establishing body language is like a really big precursor to going out, especially in the backcountry and especially in a large group or even in a small group, right? It's establishing, the body language for that day's ride and maybe understanding how other people would communicate a yes or a thumbs up, right? Or like X across your chest with your arms, like no, not okay type thing. So maybe establishing body language, especially to be communicated at a distance, would be helpful.
I love that, Carly. Thanks so much for that. That's a great solution to these type of things that we might not be able to get in every situation is, hey guys, all right, when we're going up the trail, what means yes and what means no? And we are going to agree that when one person needs to check in something, we're all responding and we're all putting our input. We're either all putting, big thumbs up or a big X, and that's how we're responding. That's awesome. Thank you, Carly. Anything else? And you'll probably start noticing later on. So if we don't think of it all right now, that's okay. Anything else coming up? All right. So another thing to keep in mind the next time you're out there, So the next really important thing around communicating in the backcountry is you need to pay fucking attention. Because we often, when we're talking about backcountry travel, we're paying attention to the terrain, the weather, if there's slides, we're doing evaluations of the snow, we're looking at the topography and are there terrain traps? Like we're very much paying attention to the mountain, the snow, but what about our group? And that's something I really want us to remember is we also need to pay attention to the people in our group. We need to pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues. So got this lovely photo of Raquel Velez, as many of you might know, wearing beautiful alpine parrot pants. We got to go on a great snowshoe together. She's been a good snowshoe friend. So think about, and you can enter this in the chat, what are nonverbal cues you could see while touring that might give you a sign to check in on that person? So nonverbal. So they're not actually telling you what's going on. You just are witnessing. I love that we're using Raquel's photo here. So she's getting warmer. Maybe we need to take off some layers and take a break. Lagging behind, that's a big one. 2, 3, multiple switchbacks back, maybe getting further back. We don't want to leave people behind. That's a good chance to check in. Head down and body dragging. Oh yeah, I've been there. Speeding ahead. Exactly. Either end of the spectrum. These are great. I'm going to look through my list here because I did some brainstorming before as well. Anything else y'all can think of? Nonverbal. So this is just total something you would observe because you are paying fucking attention. That's what you're doing. Think about something that you might do while you're out touring where you might not feel comfortable verbally sharing what's going on. It might be like, I really wish they were going faster. I really want to get up this mountain. You know, what might you share non-verbally? Stop talking. Yeah, silence. That's a big one. And that's kind of funny because that's almost kind of a verbal one. All right, so some other ones I've come across or experienced myself is slipping. Done that one a lot of slipping. Maybe it's you don't have your skins on right, or you're just not used to it. You don't have your risers on, whatever different reasons. When you're slipping, it's not a fun time. And that's definitely something to look out for to check in on somebody. Where are we at here? They're silent, they're falling behind the group. You guys got so many of these. Taking a lot of breaks. So whether it's water breaks, snack breaks, taking off layers. I also talked with a friend about if they're fixating on a feature. So if somebody just keeps looking at the same thing, they might be thinking, that looks great. I don't like how that looks. I've done the one where you skin on a different route because I don't like the one that you've chosen. And you're too far ahead for me to discuss that. So I'm just going to go over here. So what about verbal cues? What verbal cues could you listen for that would give you that sign? All right, we need to check in. We need to have a chat. Heavy breathing. I mean, I probably do that the entire time. Yep, heavy breathing for sure. What else? Incoherent speaking. Absolutely. Yeah, you're like, I can't follow you. Let's figure this out. I want to make sure I understand what you're talking about. Really direct things like, I don't feel good about this route. I don't feel comfortable on this route. I've said that. Blank hurts. Had, blisters, ankle hurts, arm hurts, whatever that is. That's a moment to check in, even if it's just to see like, all right, like, would you feel better going down? You want to take a break? Like, what sounds really good to you right now? Is there anything that you think could alleviate this? What would you feel comfortable with? I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. Snack breaks are important. Water breaks are important. Getting cranky. Oh man, have I been there? I don't know if we mentioned grunting. It's a grunting. Done that one. So this is our pay fucking attention section. We want to pay attention to the verbal and nonverbal cues those are going to be the signs for us to take a break, check in. And sometimes we need to have some kind of leading questions in order to really check in. So that's what we're going to next. And I'm keeping an eye on time. I want to try to leave time for questions. We may not get there because we're having some good discussions. So when we're checking in, we want to ask open-ended questions. And the reason for that is yes, no. Sometimes we default to a yes or no because it's easy to maybe lie and say what we think is more comfortable, right? But an open-ended question can hopefully invite somebody to communicate more honestly without the fear of kind of the repercussions or being judged or somebody else being upset with your opinions, being able to kind of talk it out, right? Like when Evan was saying her and her friend were thinking the same thing. If you had that open conversation, it's not like, no, I don't want to keep going, but like, let's talk about this. So let's think about some open-ended questions. Again, this is going to be more of a journal activity. Want you to think about any and all open-ended questions you could ask before or during a tour. So these aren't yes or no questions, and some yes or no questions are important, but I want to focus on the open-ended questions right now. Any and all you can think of. We're just going to brainstorm for a minute here. And these also can be invitations. I want you to think about that as well. It can be a question or even an invitation, because that's also open-ended rather than a yes, no. Oh, I love that you're putting them straight in the chat. That was going to be the next one, but we're going for it. Jess asked, do you have a hard stop time? I don't know if that's for me or that's the question, but I think either way, great question. When was the last time you visited this trail? What were the conditions, right? Yeah, Carly, you mentioned that earlier. That's a really great one. How do you feel? Oh my gosh, the feeling question is so good. How do you feel about these conditions? How are we feeling on time and pace? Ooh, I really like that one. Because you could say, you know what, I feel really good. Or I kind of feel like we can slow down, but maybe I do have a hard stop. So I'm in this kind of conflicted zone. And the answer to that might be, it's time to go down. We're going to cut this short. We don't have to get to the top. And we'll talk about that too. How are you feeling today? Oh my gosh, such a great question to start off with. Because you might have had plans. They might have been really excited. What if they got really bad news? What if they didn't get great sleep? This is, I mean, that's like mental health first aid 101. Great job. When was the last time you had snack water? Yes, the snack water breaks. I mean, I feel like on a tour, that's the go-to. That can solve so many grumpy situations and just get you in a better headspace, maybe feel more clear and comfortable talking. How are you feeling about the plan? What do you think our goal should be? What type of terrain do you want to ride? Yeah, that's a really great one too, because maybe you're used to riding more intense terrain with your group. But maybe that day, again, if it's lack of sleep, maybe you had a big workout and so your body's sore and you're like, you know what, I just want to do something cruisy today. All right, so I'm going to look through my questions, see if there's anything we missed here. Snack water break, how are you feeling? Does X still hurt? So we were kind of talking about earlier, if somebody speaks up and say, hey, this is giving me an issue, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, 5 switchbacks, whatever it is, checking in and saying, hey, how is that feeling? Could we swap for a bit and let you lead? That can be really good, whether somebody is behind or in front, to switch up that order. And you're not asking them, hey, do you want to lead? Do you want me to go behind you? But saying, hey, I would really like to follow your skin track for a little bit. I'd like to go at your pace, actually. Could we switch this up? I do that all the time. I like switching up. How's your temperature? Sometimes we just need a de-layer. It's usually taking off layers, not putting on. Which route looks best, safest to you? What are your concerns? Very open-ended. What are your concerns today? What's making you feel a little uncomfortable? What's causing you discomfort right now? Very open-ended. And sometimes we won't even know, right? That's a moment to be like, huh, actually, I think I'm just really hungry, or I'm absolutely hating this. This is horrible, but I want to keep going. Having that chat can really go a long way. So then we are going to check for understanding. We really want to make sure that when they do share and they're answering that open-ended question, that we're understanding. So easy ways to do this. We're not going to go into too much detail, but the general thing that you can do to check with understanding is repeat what you think that they were trying to communicate, and then ask, what did I misunderstand? So you could say, did I misunderstand anything? And again, that's a yes, no question. So they can be like, oh no, I got it. But what did I misunderstand? And they'll be like, oh yeah, well, this is a little off. Maybe you need to pull out some maps, do some pointing at things. We'll do a quick thing on this. So just think about, and if anything comes up, great. If nothing comes up, no big deal, just an invitation. Want to make sure we finish this up. How might you misunderstand someone in the backcountry? What are the repercussions of misunderstanding? Why might you misunderstand someone? The why one, to me, the first thing I think of is if you have different goals. Like I think somebody put in the notes that they'll go out with a bunch of guys and they have the powder, steep tracks, like that's on their mind. And so really misunderstanding can really become like, this is where I want to go and this is where I want to go. And so no matter what we say, our goals are going in these two different directions. And so we're just going to misunderstand each other no matter what. And repercussions, I mean, it can be anything from you're uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable, very unsafe, injuries. I mean, I've gotten injuries just from slipping because we're like going on ice and way too steep terrain. Anything else coming up on this one? On the misunderstandings?
I think sometimes just like the relationships between people, you just assume, right? Like I have a lot with a couple of people that I ride with, and not in a backcountry, but just like going through big treed areas and stuff. And, one person's like, I'm gonna go over there, and they just don't communicate well, even though they try. And I personally just assume that what they're saying based on past experiences with them. And I've been completely wrong.
That's a really big potential for misunderstanding is past experiences. So think about every tour, every person, unique person, new experience. Try not to make those assumptions. Check in. Hey, last time, blank. Do you feel the same way this time? Pretty simple thing. All right, we're going to scoot right along. So I want to make sure to finish this up before our time is over. So think about, what do you think makes a good leader? And you can throw that in the chat. Because all this coming together, I mean, in reality, you are a leader. Even if you don't feel like a leader, if you're going backcountry touring, you need to be a leader. We all need to be a leader in that group. Speaking up, yeah. What else do you think makes a good leader? Yeah, throw it in the chat. You can unmute yourself too. Open communication. Yep. Yes, making space for other perspectives. That is almost spot on to what I have as my answer. When I was reflecting on the details of this course, this is what I came up with. A good leader does not tell others what to do. A strong leader guides a team to success, utilizing everyone's knowledge and input. And that's really bringing together everything we're talking about today. Why are we out there? Everyone's speaking it up. Everybody's listening. We're paying attention. And we put all of that together and try to go in one direction as a team, because that's what we have to do in the backcountry. I'm going to wrap up on this final quote. You can always turn around. This is actually a quote from my mom that she told me when I was on a road trip many years ago, like a couple of days after I quit my job at Google to backpack the world. And I use this all the time. And I just kind of want to leave you with this thought, as you can always turn around. You can turn around at the parking lot, like Evan was saying, and get back in the car. A successful day in the backcountry is one where everyone gets home safe. And that's kind of hard to hear, because we have had some tragedy in recent weeks with some locals. And every year, this happens. So keeping this in mind, be willing, ready, and proud to change plans. That is my why in the backcountry, is to come home safely, because I want to do it again. And eating pizza at the end of the day with my friends, even if we didn't get to the top of the mountain, that's what I'm in it for. So that is our workshop, but I have one invitation as homework for you all. Here's your bonus challenge. Back to our why. Share your why in the clubhouse or on Instagram. Put it out there. You've got nothing to lose with that and everyone to gain. All those other people that are on the same page as you. So be sure to tag Coalition Snow, TREW Gear, and myself, Dirt and Tears, if you're on Instagram. If you're on the clubhouse, maybe tag me and Evan so we can see that you've shared your why. And honestly, I really hope that what comes from that is either people just give you a round of applause, other people maybe just thank you for sharing a why that isn't often shared in the media of backcountry touring. And in best case scenario, maybe you find some more backcountry touring mates to go on adventures with. So I hope to see some of those out there. To wrap things up, I just want to share, if you guys enjoyed this workshop, this is not the only workshop I do. I do quite many workshops, actually. This is a list of some of the other workshops that I run. There's details on all of these on my website, which I'll show on the next slide. Everything is pretty much focused around some sort of mental health, communication, self-care, and focused on people who work or recreate in the outdoors. That's where my teaching collides. And so for anyone who does want more information, here's a bunch of QR codes, email addresses, Instagrams, all the things. So you'll see here the first QR code, the mental health first aid certification course. I didn't talk about that. If you're interested in more details, feel free to email me, check out my website. But you can get on the wait list for the next course at that QR code. If you're like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'd like to keep in touch and hear about more things, I've got a newsletter. And then I also have a self-care course that I'm teaching in partnership with Justine Moulier, who is a former Coalition Snow ambassador. And that's happening in April. So you can go ahead and register for that course. And that's it. So we can stick around for questions, and yeah.
This was really good. This was awesome. This was so helpful. And like, also just so everyone knows, we'll have all these links for where you can find out more from Natasha. We'll put that in the follow-up. And I know a few people joined at the end. So if you didn't put your name in the chat, just go ahead and do that. And then if there's any last minute questions for Natasha, but these journaling prompts were great.
Thanks. I'm glad you like them. I'm a big fan of journaling since I'm a writer. I find a lot of power in just self-reflection, especially on this topic where it's a little bit comfortable. I mean, we're trying to be more comfortable. So yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed those. Yeah,
it was awesome. And time zones. I get it, Christina. No worries. I'm always working in PST, but I live in MST, even though it's just an hour. I understand.
Yeah, it was a quick one, huh?
Yeah. And then also real quick, I think people are still on, but our next Backcountry Beta, I always have to look at a calendar. Oh, it's March 8th. So 8th. So mark your calendar for March 8th, and we'll put more details in the clubhouse to what that will actually be. But thank you all so much for coming. And this recording will be in Backcountry Beta, along with a little follow-up document, and then links to find out more information from Natasha. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all your participation and taking the time. And Carly, I don't know if you have a question.
Nope.
Okay.
Massive thank you though.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. So glad you were here. And yeah, if you have questions later, like I love connecting with people, so don't hesitate to reach out. No wrong questions. And yeah, I just appreciate everybody's time and energy, and good luck out there.